how the German Workers' Party came to political power. So, after World War I, Germany needed help, and Hitler used propaganda to segregate and kill people who were not
Aryan, like
Aryan.
like air, the breathe.
Okay,
Aryan.
Aryan.
Mm-hmm.
World War I happened because of the assassination of the French, not the French, the Australian emperor and Austrian emperor, and many things led up to it, and it was mainly centralized in Europe, but that's basically what triggered the war. And yeah, a Serbian terrorist group killed him, so that's kind of why it was centralized in Europe. So Germany had to surrender from the war because they had lost 1 million men during the war in a 6-month period, and they calculated that they will need about 1.1 more million to like sustain war effort in 1919. Another reason why they surrendered is because by the winter of 1917 to 1918, there was a low amount of food in German cities. And then another reason is because they were weakened by a loss of allies in 1918. So yeah, they surrendered from the war, and the peace settlement that ended World War I was called Treaty of Versailles. Versailles is French. Versailles?
Yeah, no S. Don't
Oh.
pronounce the S.
Okay. Germany, and that left Germany struggling economically and politically because at that time, communists and Jews were coming to power. I'm mixing everything up. Forget these. Okay, we're coming to power, and like people, there were a lot of
Semitism.
anti-Semitism in like 1918 and 1919, and people didn't like that Jews were coming to power.
Mm-hmm.
So the triumphant Western powers, which is like the beigeish color right here, so like France, Russia, like these, and they won against the pinkish colors, like Germany, mainly Germany, and they established a treaty that made Germany like pay for all the damage that happened, because in the Western powers, that's where most of the fighting has been. So they had to pay for like reparations and stuff. So that's why they were left economically unstable. So yeah, and then people like Hitler and Anton Drexler and people like that, like they're nationalists, and they felt betrayed by the Jews and communists because like people were left hungry and unemployed and all this other stuff because they surrendered from the war. So that's why there's this stab in the back theory that Hitler believed that communists and Jews stabbed them in the back because they made everyone have a difficult time, like suffer and stuff. So Hitler, he dropped out of high school at the age of 16 in 1905 because his dad died, and his mom was like, yeah, you can drop out. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, he dropped out, and then he applied, a few years after, he applied to the Fine Arts Academy, and he applied twice, but he didn't get in. And then he was left out of money, so he went to a homeless shelter for several years, and that's where he like developed and grew his anti-Semitism. And yeah, so then after World War after the homeless shelter, he joined the army at the outbreak of World War I. And then after World War I, after Germany surrendered, he continued working for the military as a intelligence officer. And another term for this is a police spy. So Germany sent Hitler to go to the German Workers' Party because they were trying to bust anti-Marxist raids and stuff, which anti-Marxist is like people who don't believe in communism and stuff, and yeah. So Hitler was sent there, and then he adapted to like their ideas, and this is where like our theme comes in. I forgot our theme. Exploration came in, like exploration of ideas throughout the German Workers' Party and stuff. So anyway, so he joined because Anton Drexler, who was the founder, he founded the the German Workers' Party in 1919, he approached Hitler and they talked. He gave him a 40-page pamphlet like called My Political Upbringing, and he read it. He came back, and then in 1921 he became leader and took his place as leader and changed the name from German Workers' Party to the Nazi Party. And then he started using propaganda against the Jews and communists to the Germans so that he can try to come to power using that propaganda. So they told him they were stabbed in the back, and these people were like disadvantaged because they were like unemployed and hungry and they barely had any money. So like they're gonna like believe almost anything. So that's kind of how Hitler got more and more popular. He began gaining supporters and stuff. So that's how Beer Hall Putsch kind of started. Like he had enough supporters, he thought he can violently take over the government. That's what Putsch means. So he kidnapped a man named Gustav, and he was like a government official in Munich, Germany. Munich, Germany, and he, how do you say, kidnapped him on November 2nd, 6 days before Beer Hall Putsch started, to like approach this one of the biggest beer halls in Munich, to like declare a what do you call it, government takeover. But he kind of backed out of the plan, so Hitler had to do it himself. So he went to the beer hall, and he was like, he shot a pistol in the air, and he was like, guys, I'm gonna overtake the government, da 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 da. And then his first mistake was going over to, so he had over 3,000 of his like German gangs, they call them the SS, like go and try to overtake government buildings around Munich. And yeah, he made the mistake of going to one of them because his supporters were approached by military troops. So he went over there, and that was a mistake because there he was captured and taken to jail. So while he was in jail, he began to gain more popularity, and his defense speeches were printed on newspapers. So he began to be more popular. He went to prison for only 1.5 years when he was supposed to go for 6 years, but he got a pardon, which is like he can leave. So because he was so he has so many supporters. So yeah, he came out of prison, and then he ran for president against Paul von Hindenburg. And yeah, they ran against each other, but he won. But he had so many supporters, and he wanted to make the nation happier. So he made Hitler chancellor, I think it's called. And it's like when chancellor's kind of head of the German government. So he's pretty up there. So he's pretty much the leader as well. So, but then there was another, election where Hitler asked Paul to give him the right to take someone's rights, like to give him the right to take someone's laws and all this stuff, to change laws and take someone's rights away. So that's why Hitler had the ability to make Nuremberg laws. And Nuremberg laws are like when he basically did not allow people to Aryans to marry Jews because he wanted to know how to segregate the Jews. So, and they also prevented Jewish kids from having an education. So, this is so long. Okay, so that's why there's this kid wearing a star, because they began segregating people by putting like Jewed stars on them. And he created concentration camps. It's where and work camps, it's like where you took Jews, communists, homosexuals, gypsies, people who were not considered Aryan and clean and perfect, and they sent them to concentration camps. And basically this is just a place where they murdered a bunch of Jews and everyone. And they forced labor, and they barely had any food. Like, I was reading this book, I forgot what it's called, but this girl, she was in a concentration camp, and they gave them like a stew, but it was green, it had like, I don't know, but she said it wasn't enough. So Yeah. Then there was the what? Oh wait, no. Then there was Night of Broken Glass. It's called Kristallnacht, and this was November 9th through 10th, 1938. And this is when this is where German gangs they like destroyed uh, Jewish temples, Jewish businesses. This is like where they grabbed all the books, like took many Jewish people to concentration camps. So yeah, and then there was the Weymouth Conference, and this was on January 20th, 1942, and this is where they created ghettos, and this was like at the outbreak of World War II, and they created ghettos. It was kind of temporary, like people were sent there to be sent to concentration camps. So yeah, and there was, yeah, people lived there. And I also read this other book, and it was like they like children who were there. They like still had the adults still tried to give them an education from home and stuff. It was kind of sad, but yeah. Conclusion. The Germans, they tried to make their country a better nation, but Hitler chose the very like cruel way of making it. So I think it was unjust, and they could have chosen a better way to make another nation.